know I've been around and doing it, but now it's my time to shine and start proving it. I'm losing it, I'm moving it. The city is where I'm made, Bostonian flow, I kick it back there. Yeah, I got game, God in a fan way. We the city of the champs, every sport we play. Spit wetter than the harbor, yeah, I'm flowing like the Charles. I be speeding on this beat, call it Turnpike Miles. Yeah, it's Buku signing on, John to the Hancock, and I'm always key, I'm ready to unlock. I be doing big things, don't even have a deal, yeah, I battle through these.
Welcome back, everyone, to the newest edition of Once a Week. I'm Billy Janlutis, and guys, we have an incredible special guest here for you now. A few weeks back, we did a video together. We got Chris Kraft here coming to us from Alabama, who is a leadership speaker. And in our past video, we created so much power that the technology couldn't handle it. The audio went out, the video went out and everything. So I had to get Chris back here. We got to continue that message. So if you were able to watch that YouTube video, I apologize for the technology, but the message behind it is still there. You can still gain a lot from it, and we're going to continue that today. Because last time we talked about all this different tools and toolboxes that Chris brings to his audiences and people that he helps out. We want to continue that. So Chris, thank you so much for joining us once again here on Once a Week.
Billy, it's a pleasure, man. I love what you guys are doing. I love your interviews, the guests that you have, the principles that you're sharing with the world through some difficult times for a lot of people. You're a bright light. I definitely appreciate that right now, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. No, seriously, as long as we can help anyone in any way we can, that's exactly what Once a Week is there for. And, speaking of that, with people going through a tough time and everything, as we know, COVID has been going on for months now, and you have had a little bit more of an experience with COVID. If you want, I don't know if you want to touch on that a little bit, but
might as well, man. Might as well. So we're recording this the week after Thanksgiving, and the week of Thanksgiving, my wife and I started developing some symptoms. Monday before Thanksgiving, I got tested, or the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I got tested positive, and my wife tested positive later that week. A couple members of our family. So it's kind of interesting. I was telling Billy a minute ago that COVID, the way it hits, I'm very thankful that my wife and I are pretty healthy people. I know a lot of people are facing really bad symptoms, and my heart goes out to them. My wife and I had some very short-term symptoms, and we're doing a lot better today. But one of the things that I think I've been able to help people understand through all this is, regardless of what happens, and maybe this is a good segue into what we can talk about today, Billy, but one of the biggest issues that people forget is whatever you're doing in life, wherever you're at, you're going to face obstacles. Mm-hmm. And how big those obstacles become in your life is largely based on what we talked about the last session, was your toolbox.
Yeah.
Or your backpack, right?
Yep.
So as as my wife and I have been walking through COVID, and again, we'll talk through some of the process. Yep. As we've been walking through this, I've been so thankful that we had a full toolbox to walk through this process with.
Yeah.
Because so many people right now, Billy, are walking through heavy things. Suicides are up 60%. Depression and anxiety is up. Financial insecurity and uncertainty are at an all-time high. So as people are walking through these things, the question is, do they have the tools to walk through them well? Yeah. Or do they collapse under the weight of the stress? So that's really, I think, where we should go into today is, regardless of if you're an employee, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're married, if you're single, if you're living at home, if you're living by yourself, it doesn't matter if you're a parent, if you're not, yep, you're going to walk through these serious obstacles in life.
Yep.
And if they collapse you,
yep,
and they absolutely overwhelm you, or if you push past them and treat them like a speed bump, is largely dependent on your toolbox. So let's kind of dive into some of that, because I really think that I've been able to walk through this. My wife and I have been able to walk through this with virtually unscathed, both physically, but really more mentally, because of our toolbox.
Exactly. No, I love that. That's exactly what I want to talk about today. Because, as Chris just mentioned, we talked a little bit before we started recording this right now, and you use that exact example where, if you don't have the tools in place, if you don't have the toolbox, the backpack, whatever terminology people want to use for it, with the skills, traits, knowledge of what's going on, you're going to be climbing a mountain. And you use this example with me, which I think is perfect, because you just mentioned the other aspect of it. When you have the toolbox, you turn that mountain into a speed bump. So let's build on that right there, because when you said it, I was like, oh, that's exactly what I want to talk about.
Sounds good. Well, let's definitely go there. Let me review real quick what we talked about in the last, and just in case somebody wasn't able to finish it
Yeah.
due to the technical difficulties. So, just a very brief explanation is we talked about that we need to go through life with there's two examples that we can think of mentally.
Yep.
Is a toolbox and a backpack.
Yeah.
And a toolbox is where we have the tools that we use to build a successful life. Success meaning whatever you think of when you think success. If for some people it's being a good parent, having the time to spend the time with their kids. For some people it's having the finances to be able to have all the options they want. Whatever, so for some people it's a ministry aspect where they give their lives to the missions. So whatever that looks like for you, you need the tools that it takes to build that successful life. The other side's a backpack, and the backpack is what weighs you down
Yeah.
as you're walking through this journey. And what most people do is most people walk through life with an empty toolbox
Mm.
and a full backpack with
Yeah.
rocks of bitterness and jealousy and envy. And that stuff is weighing them down, making life more difficult. So, what our goal should be is to increase our skills and our tools and decrease the heaviness of life. So, the goal ultimately is to walk through life with a full toolbox and an empty backpack.
Yeah.
That needs to eventually be our goal. So, as we're going through life, one of the things we need to be thinking of is how do I increase my skill set? That's just a good question for you to write down. Maybe how do I increase my skill set in what? Well, skill set in whatever it takes for you to have a better life, right? Skill set. One of the things Laura and I teach the most is interpersonal communication. We teach people skills,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not taught. It's very obvious it's not taught. If you spend any amount of time with people, it's very obvious that people skills are not taught.
Yeah.
Simple people skills, personality tendencies, core fears, languages of appreciation, conflict resolution, the value of mentors and coaches in your life. Just these simple things that a lot of people have no clue about. If you need needle nose pliers, the most frustrating thing in the world is if you don't have needle nose pliers. You need the tool that it takes for the situation. Well, guess what? When you have COVID, guess what you need? You need supplements, you need vitamins, you need the ability to be able to rest. You also need the mental capacity to be able to not fall into depression. If you take away all my people skills, my base personality tendency when something goes wrong is I collapse. I lay on my couch in depression.
Okay.
That's my base personality tendency.
Mm.
The only reason I don't do that is over the years, I have built enough of a toolbox
Yeah.
and a skill set where when something goes wrong, like you were talking about, I don't amplify the situation. I I de-escalate it. I turn it down.
Mhm.
Something I was talking to somebody about the other day. I've learned over the years, one of the biggest things that I noticed is the situation became bigger in my mind the more I talked about it. So I challenged some people that I was speaking to. I said, "Do you talk more about your problems or where you're going?"
Yeah.
And like I know you and a lot of your previous guests that you've had in your show, what you say to yourself is powerful.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, so my question would be, what kind of tools do you have in your toolbox to change the way that you talk to yourself, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of us know what we need to do. We don't know how to do it.
Exactly.
We don't know how to accomplish it. I told someone the other day, I said, if you're going to build a house, you need two basic things: the raw materials and the tools to put it up.
Yep.
I'm for me, I'm a Christian. Um, I'm a Christian. I'm of the Christian faith.
Yep.
So for me, the raw materials for my life are biblical truths,
Yeah.
the words of Jesus.
Definitely.
Well, that's fantastic for a lot of people. But let me ask you a question, Billy. Why is divorce the same in the church that it is outside?
Mm.
Why do we have as many kids turning to drugs in the church as we do outside? I believe personally that the reason is because our raw materials are right,
Mhm.
but we don't have the toolbox. We
Yeah.
don't know how to apply those
Yeah.
biblical principles. Philippians chapter 4, verse 8 says, whatsoever things are good and pure and pleasing and righteous, think on these things.
Yeah.
How?
Yep.
2 Corinthians chapter 10 talks about take every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. How?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So then I start including books like the 4-8 Principle by Tommy Newberry.
Yeah.
as a man thinketh, and you start throwing some of these books in, then these books can help you build on the foundation that is Christ. And I'm not meaning to preach, but it's the idea of take whatever the raw materials are for you,
Yep.
but you still need a toolbox.
Yep.
Personal development, professional development, videos like this video series that can teach you how to apply. So that's the idea, Billy, of how to use your toolbox
Yep.
to take some of the stones out and release some of the bitterness and envy. So your like our COVID journey is not as heavy.
Yep.
And at the same time, you can increase your skill set by reading, listening, and associating with people who can add value to your life.
Exactly. No, that's incredible. Everything works so well together, what you just said. And it's true, whether someone comes at it from a Christian faith or someone comes from a different perspective, the same problems are popping up in every area because people don't know how to do whatever direction they've been given. And the more people, as it says in the Bible as well, you got to meditate on the word. As much as you're meditating on the word, you're meditating on how to activate and use what those words are in your own life. And so that goes for everything. And one point that I really want people to grasp from everything you just said is the first tool that I think everyone can start with is the questions. You asked incredible questions just in going over everything. And if like you even have people write down, what's your skill set? The fact that you even have that first question, if you ask yourself more empowering questions, that's a tool in itself that all you need is honestly a pen and paper or just your head. You don't need to go out and buy all this stuff. You just need to sit there. As much as I really want people to read after this and gain that insight from whatever area they're moving in, if you can ask yourself more empowering questions, you gain so many answers and you gain so much direction. And that's truly, that even dates back to the Bible, and it's just using all this stuff moving forward. But that's a tool in itself where if people need their bare minimum, ask a better question. How can I better myself? Not, oh man, why am I stuck in this? Why am I so depressed? You're going to get the answer with whatever you ask. If you ask yourself, oh, how can I improve myself today? An answer will come to you one way or the other. That's a tool. But I completely agree with everything you said, Chris, about de-escalating situations because you've built up the tools. You know when to, like, oh, metaphorically speaking, I go grab a hammer. What that hammer could be the book that has the answer for you right there. Exactly. And people need to have that. So no, I think that's incredible. And there's so much power to it. With reading and doing certain things, give the people some examples. Like what's some specific books that you mentioned a couple, just what you just said. Give some examples. Like what's some good book people can just start reading to gain these insights, to gain these tools to build on?
No doubt. So a couple that I really encourage, I have people all the time because I'm a real big reader and I talk so much about reading as being one of the keys. Because here's the deal. Let's just be straight. There's a principle that I heard, and I can't remember if we talked about this last time. So let me touch on this real quick. Excuse me. The results we have in our lives are based on the actions we take. And we're going to go backwards here, right? Yeah. The results come from the actions we take. The actions and the habits that we have are based on our thinking. Our thinking creates our actions. Well, even our thinking is not where it starts. It starts with the inputs that we put in. So the way that the path works is our inputs create our thinking creates our actions create our results. Yep. Here's the problem. A lot of people in recovery, because my wife and I do a lot of work in recovery. Yep. We do a lot of work with people trying to help with their physical lives and everything. A lot of people want to change their results, so they change their actions, not realizing they're taking the same thought processes into the process and nothing's ultimately going to change, at least for the long term, right? So that's why I talk so much about, but even the thought processes, how do you change those? You change the inputs. You have to change the inputs, change the things that are coming in. A lot of people fall into depression and they wonder why, because they're only listening to their own voices.
Exactly.
You've got to change the inputs. You got to change the voices coming in, have some kind of empowering, inspirational something coming in, right? And it's not just about rah-rah, right? It's about helping understand input principles. So with some, and I'm going to get your question. I apologize. I just wanted to set it up correctly.
I like it.
So with the reading and listening, it's about changing your inputs. It's about changing the things that are coming into your life. So there's nothing wrong with reading books such as comic books or novels or stuff like that. Change up the genres, nothing wrong with that. But are you reading or listening to anything to help you change the things you ultimately want to change? If your life is falling into depression and disrepair, guess what? You need to read and listen to things that can help you get where you want to go. Books like this, and a couple of the first ones I like to recommend, if you are struggling with relationships, in the book Personality Plus by Florence Littauer is one of the keys, because it teaches personality tendencies in two ways, helps you understand your own tendencies that you have, and it helps understand the personality tendencies of other people,
Yeah.
so then you can respond to them better. There's a statement I wrote in the first of that book, because I read it every year, time after time after time. um, and the statement is, this book helps replace frustration with grace.
Mm, nice.
So, Billy, I apologize. Are you able to edit this?
You're good. No, keep it going. No worries at all.
Keep going. Okay. Okay. Sorry. I just wanted to make sure. So Personality Plus is a really, really big one. The other one that I really want to encourage is called The Slight Edge. The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. This is a really big one, because what the slight edge and okay, and this is what I'm going to say. There's two different books that say the same thing, but they're kind of written to different personality types. The slight edge is for people who want more details,
Okay.
right? Like they're real detail oriented. There's another book called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, which is more, if you're kind of just shut up and tell me what it takes to win, that's going to be the book for you. They talk about very similar things, but here's what it basically says: the small things you do every day is what determines the path that you eventually go.
Okay.
And both of those books help give you some tools to start changing your daily habits,
Yeah.
so you can actually modify the results over the long term. What a lot of people don't realize is it doesn't happen instantly. People want to change their results today. While I'm facing depression, I want to be out of it tomorrow. If it took you 20 years to get into it, it's not going to be fixed overnight.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
going to have to give it time. So, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy and The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson are two really good ones. You've got The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. that is that are some of these. So you've got First Things First. You've got a lot of the classic books, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. I wouldn't encourage by Maxwell somebody jump into immediately. Sometimes you got to fix your own mindset before you jump into a leadership book,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
So, but um, the other one I was going to encourage for somebody who appreciates the Christian viewpoint is the 4-8 Principle by Tommy Newberry, that talks about Philippians 4:8 and how to apply that in your life. So here's the key. And I told you I wanted to touch on this real quick as well. The key is, do you have anyone in your life who you respect, who can give you a book recommendation?
Mm,
Right now, maybe it starts with this. Maybe it starts that you respect Billy G, and you should respect what he's trying to do. He doesn't have to do any of this. His goal is not even to make the money that comes with right. So the goal is, he doesn't have to do this. He does this for his listeners. He does this for the people that are watching. So maybe it starts there, and you say, well, I'm gonna put some stock into what he says and his guests say. That's great. But you also need someone personally in your life who is a coach or a mentor.
yeah.
And just a brief explanation of those. A coach is somebody who can help your actions. A mentor is somebody who can help your mindset. That's overly simplified. There's more to it than that. But I have a business coach who I run with, who, hey, here's what I did yesterday. Can you help me walk through and change the process? My mentor is someone I call and say, Mark, having a hard time today. What you got for me? Like, what book can you recommend? What what audio should I be listening to? What direction should I take for my mindset to change? So who do you have in your life? And many of you, the answer is going to be simple: nobody,
Yeah.
because we're not trained to do that.
Yeah.
But what you need, because I can make general book recommendations that are fantastic. Leadership and Self-Deception by the Arbinger Institute is one of my all-time favorites for anyone who says, you know what, I just don't know what in my life needs to change. I just seem to rub people the wrong way. I don't know why I can't seem to push on. A lot of times it's because of self-deception that we've fallen into over the years, that we are deceiving ourselves and don't even know it. We're not aware of our own blind spots. Leadership and Self-Deception is a great book. I can give general book recommendations, but every one of our listeners today needs somebody in their life. Well, Chris, how do I find that somebody? That's probably a discussion for another time. But for me, I found an organization that is going the direction I want to go, and I chase those people down. and I say, you know what, you have the results I want. Would you mind spending a little bit of time with me? What would it take to earn some time with you?
Yeah.
So Billy, I think what it really comes down to is starting.
Yeah.
And then I'll give it back to you for a second, because a lot of people say I'm not a reader. Well, if I can be so bold, I know you weren't,
Yeah.
but do you want a change in your life?
Exactly.
You need to become a reader.
Yeah.
Well, I don't read very fast. I didn't ask how fast you read. Read for 15 minutes if it's a page.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Right? There's big leaders that I highly respect who hadn't read a book in their whole life before they started the system that I'm in today. And they were spending 20 minutes to read one page. But guess what? Eventually it became two.
Yeah.
Then it became three. And eventually practice becomes, and now they're authors, not just readers. They're
Yeah.
authors.
Yeah.
So the question is not, are you the person that you want to become? The question is, are you willing to do the changes in your life to become the
Yep.
person who can win the victories that you want to win?
That's awesome. Yeah. No, I love that. I think that's perfect. And the encompassing aspect of that is two encompassing pieces from everything you just said. The compound effect. I can put a link to that. I did a video like that for a couple of months back, and it's so powerful. And everything you just said is the compound effect. The little changes that you start making, whether it is reading one page, whether it is reading 2 pages, say if you're not a reader, doing that daily over time, or going to the gym, it's all about changing who you are into trying to become who you want to be and who you're meant to be, for that matter. And if someone's sitting there with depression, or someone's sitting there with negativity, or whatever it is, get out of that state. How do you get out of that state? You make the little steps needed until you look back on your life and you're like, oh wow, those little steps were actually the giant leaps that I needed to make. And the compound effect, as Chris just went over, is the little changes you make that add up over time. And 1 + 1 is 2. Okay, 2 + 1 is 3. And eventually you keep doing those little tiny steps. You're at 100 steps, and you are so further down the line than what you were at step 1. And when you look back, you see all that. So that's huge right there. And I want people to either read that book. I can post the video I did after this one, of course, but start doing the little things and see how far they take you. And then the second piece that I really grasped from everything Chris just said is kind of what he started with. What voice is in your head? And there's a good chance it is your voice going on, and it's going to completely keep reciting your own insights, reciting your own worries, reciting your own stress, reciting your own anxiety. I hope your own voice is telling you good stuff that's going on. But if it isn't, which sadly with the way of the world right now, as Chris touched on before as well, depression, suicide rates, everything is at such a high because the world is in such a different area. But if you can pivot from that and really start to change that mindset, that voice in your head. And, I was, Chris mentioned again, he's got a business coach, and everyone, I've been working with someone as well for business stuff. And they asked me the other day, and, I stay good mindset and everything. And they just threw it out there to the clients, to the coaches, to everyone that was there, and said, what voice is in your head? And if it's yours, it's one thing. But when you pick up a book, when you listen to a podcast, when you watch a video like we're doing right now, you're hearing our voices. If you have a goal of someone that you want to inspire to be, like, I always tell everyone in the old videos, like, Tony Robbins was the goal for me. I was able to train under him, learn everything that he did, and then take it to where Billy wants to go. For so long, the voice that was in my head was no longer Billy's, it was Tony's, because that was the goal. And then I started to gain other insights and started to gain other readings and books and everything. And now I was able to empower my own voice that goes on in here. So it's no longer picking off the pieces of everyone. As Chris said as well, your mentor and your coach, eventually you get to a point where your mindset is so strong where you can gain insights in your own way. But it's all built off of those little tiny skill sets of reading, of picking up something different, of changing the little tiny things. So I agree to everything Chris just said with that. And that's truly how to take those mountains that we claim we need to pass and build them down, honestly, knock them down to a speed bump, or if anything, a pebble, a molehill, as the old saying is, and to get right over it. So, I love that, Chris. I really appreciate you diving into that. That's huge.
No problem. If I could throw out one more quick thing, the last thing I ever want to do is invalidate what someone's walking through, right? And I don't think we did, but I want to make sure I get rid of this mindset if anybody's thinking this. I don't want to downplay COVID. My wife and I are walking through it currently still. I don't want to downplay divorce. I don't want to downplay death in somebody's family. We're not saying that the problems are not true problems.
Mhm.
The problems that we walk through, when a teenager breaks up with their boyfriend or girlfriend, they think the world's falling. And the worst thing we can actually do, because I've worked with teenagers for years,
Yep.
is to invalidate whatever it is they're walking through.
Yeah.
If you want to make your teenager never have a relationship with you again, then invalidate what they're walking through, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to make anybody feel like we're invalidating the mountains that people are walking through. There are some really big mountains that people are facing. Some people are taking COVID and they're in the hospital on death's door.
It's true.
Some people have lost family members to that. So I don't want to downplay that. What I want to help people understand is every Goliath you come up to that's threatening to tear you down, you will stay at that Goliath until you push past it. And how long are you going to allow that Goliath to beat you back?
Mm.
So I don't want to invalidate the problems, but what I want to tell you is as long as you constantly focus on the problems and how big they are, then your dream of pushing past it will never get accomplished because the obstacle is so big in your mind.
Yeah.
So I'm reading a book right now called Swing by Dan Hawkins. And he talks about you have to figure out a way to see where you're going in a bigger light, literally raise it up higher than your obstacle. So that's what will push you past your Goliath. So I'm not invalidating the problems that our listeners are walking through. I'm simply saying, how long are we going to allow them to beat us?
Yeah.
There needs to come a point where eventually we go, enough.
Mm.
I'm not saying just enough of COVID. I'm just mentally thinking it's done. No, I know COVID's out there, but I refuse to let COVID beat me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't want to invalidate what people are walking through, but I would simply ask the question, how long are you going to allow what you're walking through to stall your success journey?
Mm.
That
Yeah.
would be the question I ask.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, it's and I don't think there was any invalidation going on, but if even that thought popped into someone's head, like, oh, come on, I think you just did an incredible job at, pushing that thought out, because that's what we want. We want to push out those negative thoughts. And due to people's past patterns, or past thought patterns, those thoughts are like, oh, how could they say that? Could be the first thing that pops in your head.
Exactly.
But the more you can kind of get those out, like, stop looking at that, start looking at and open up your awareness to everything that else is around you, you really start to see everything is around you and there is some good stuff around you,
Exactly.
So no, I think that's perfect right there. And if there was any invalidation, believe me, it's like, if we're asking you to raise your perspective, open up your eyes a little bit more, it can only help you in your situation. And
Exactly.
that's all we want to put out there.
Exactly.
But Chris, I don't want to keep you too long, but I do want to ask, you mentioned the organization, just a real tidbit, but I want people to understand more of this, because I've talked to you more about this, and I like, why did you align yourself with life? How about that? You dive deep into what this is, but why did you get involved with that? You mentioned a little bit.
Yeah, no, and I definitely, I love talking about it because the first thing I want to tell everybody is I'm not convinced that any one toolbox is better than the other. Right. But what I'll tell you is if you don't have a toolbox, you need to align yourself with a toolbox. And what I mean by a toolbox is, like we talked about earlier, what voices are coming in your head? What success principles are you learning? So I'll make this long story very, very short. Basically, I've always loved leadership development. I've always loved personal development. But I didn't have a vehicle. I didn't have a toolbox. I didn't have a way to increase my own influence, like pre-YouTube and pre-everything else. I didn't have a way to grow myself. And even if I did, it was my own walking into Barnes and Noble and hoping that I picked the right one. Terrible strategy. Don't do that. So, but it's the idea of I needed somebody in my life to kind of point me in a direction and say, hey, here's some suggestions, here's some thoughts, here's some principles. But I needed to make sure they were aligned with me in purpose. Right. So I was introduced to this company. It was a Life Leadership at the time. Now they've shortened their name to Life, about 6 years ago. And their goal was, and again, you got to think of what my purpose is. Their goal, their stated goal from their company, is to help people get better results in their lives by helping them modify the information flow and the input flow. And I'm like, well, this is directionally correct with where I'm going.
Yeah.
So maybe this is a good toolbox for me to utilize. And they take success principles over the years. The founders of the company created the company debt free. They don't owe anybody a dime, which says two things. The company's not going to collapse anytime soon. The only time the company shuts down is when their debts are higher than their profits. If you have no debts, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And number two, it tells me they don't need my money. They're here to actually help me because they don't need my money, right? So I thought, and I dug into the company, made sure it was character driven, high integrity. I've never been disappointed in the company. Their information is fantastic. The seminars and conventions they put on are fantastic. And if anybody wants to go check out the website, it's lifeinfoapp.com, because what they've done is they did $500 million in leadership development information of sales over the years. And they said, we're going to take all this information, we're going to combine it with financial tools to help the average person save money. So now we have all these tools and services in this platform that the average person is able to utilize to better their life, to bring them financial certainty, to bring them mental stability. And in this time, and again, there's no need to compare tools one to another, right? I'm not comparing Tony Robbins against Orrin Woodward. They're teaching success principles. But what I'll tell you is, if you don't have a toolbox, contact me and I'll connect you with this company, because they have principles, they have books, audios, conferences, seminars, Zoom associations. There's tons of stuff at a very minimum cost to be a part of this group and to have a toolbox and association to dig into. So I appreciate you letting me mention that, because, and I could go into more, but I'm not going to, because this is your thing, this is your platform. But what I'll tell you is this: if you use the Life platform, if you use Tony Robbins, John Maxwell, anything you use, go get a toolbox. Go find books to read, association stuff to listen to, because if you're not walking through something now, guess what? You will. Because the mountains don't stop. The mountains don't stop. So what I would encourage you, and I told somebody this the other day, I'm not asking you, was your 2020 good? Because guess what? 2020 is almost done. The question is, what are you doing now to make 2021 better than 2020? How are you preparing now to make the next financial collapse that's going to happen? How are you bettering your own financial standing now to prepare for what's coming next? Because guess what? We won't even get on this now, but there's going to be another collapse happen. Where are you going to be personally when that happens? Prepare now for a better 2021. So appreciate you letting me share that, Billy.
Oh, of course. Oh my goodness. I love the Life app, and to give people more important, I work with Chris. I actually have the Life app. I'm part of that now, just to gain extra tools, to gain extra skill sets. And if anyone is wondering how they can improve their skill set to start, take a chance. And that's not saying buy anything, but talk to Chris. I'll put his email at the end of this video. Reach out to him. He set up a Zoom call with me. That's how we came in contact with each other. But I'm sure it'd be fine to talk with you guys on the phone, Zoom call, whatever it is, and fill you in on that. But no, I'm more than happy to talk about that, because there's so many tools to add to people's toolboxes there. But before we close, I love what you just said, where there will always be mountains coming. And I'm sitting there, the first thing that popped in my head, but we will get stronger. The mountains aren't that big. The stronger you get, meaning this entire video, everything you do from this point on, you're getting stronger every single day. It's just a matter of what area you're trying to get stronger in. So I love that right there. And another piece that popped in my head too is, people keep bringing up to me 2020. Oh, 2020 was off, all this stuff. And I was like, oh, when's 2020 going to end? And everyone's like, sometimes, yeah, we're in December now. It is December 2nd as of right now when this video happened. And people are still saying, when is 2020 going to end? 2020 will never end until you start doing something. I don't care when 2021 happens. That's not January 1st. Your 2020 will continue on if you do not do something to better yourself. That's how you get out of 2020 mindsets. And that's all 2020 has been. It's a mindset. Yes.
Dude, that's really good. That's really good. And what I'll tell you, my 2020 has been pretty awesome. Just to be straight with you, I've had a really good 2020 this year. My wife and I we paid off thousands of dollars of debt. I was able to get a raise at work. You're exactly right. The 2020 is terrible is completely a mindset. And your 2021 is going to be terrible too if you carry the same mindset. So why don't we do this? Team up with Billy, team up with Chris, team up with somebody
Yeah.
Change your mindset so your mindset will not be the same. I love that, dude. That was fantastic.
No, and that's the point we got to end on, because I think that's perfect. But as Chris just said, reach out to Chris, reach out to me. We are more than happy to be in your corner and help you with this, to gain the mindsets, to gain the skill sets. But you got to take the step, and that's what everything comes down to. You took a step by pressing play on this video. Take the next one. Send an email. Take the next one. Send a text message. Send whatever it is, but start something. And I love that. But Chris, I thank you so much for today's message. We got the technology good. This is going to be a great one. But guys, if you're up for it, watch the video too, so all this comes together. I know the past video, the technology is a little off. The audio is there. It's just the video itself kind of broke it up a bit. There's a little, like, Zoom wasn't working that day. But that being said, the message is still there. Take it in if you can get through it. But take this message and run with it. That's all I can say. But Chris, I thank you for every single message you brought today. You brought so much insights and influence and everything. And guys, again, reach out to Chris. I'm going to put his link at the end of this video. Reach out to him on questions, the life app for that matter, just questions about the toolbox. I'm sure he's more than happy to answer them. But yeah, Chris, thank you so much. That was awesome.
It was a pleasure, Billy. I appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But guys, like always, like this message on YouTube. Let's get that number going. Share this to someone. If there is someone that's stuck in that 2020 mindset and they're not breaking out of it, or they've been through a struggle, their mountain is so high they don't know how to lower it down to a speed bump, or if their name or that person popped in your head during this video at any one of these messages, that's a clear-cut sign that person is meant to hear this as well. Share it to them. And please hit that subscribe button. Let's get that number up. Let's get this video to more and more people. Let's get all these videos to more and more people by hitting that subscribe button. And as always, if you or anyone you know is in need of a life coach, go to billygLifeCoaching.com and set up a free call with me, a free Zoom call, whatever it is, and I'll be right there for you to dive into exactly what are you going through and how we can get you so much stronger and so much to where you need to be. But again, Chris, thank you so much. Yeah, awesome. Phenomenal. Have a good one, guys.
I've been around and doing it, but now it's my time to shine and start proving